Well, on the phone with me is Ashley, and Ashley, we just heard your voicemail that kind of set this all up with the idea of you face the quintessential dilemma of higher desire, lower desire, and you find yourself in the higher desire, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then what I'm picking up from that is there's been some changes that have happened even because of the stressors that you guys have had based on what's happened in North Carolina this past 6-8 months, as well
hmm
as lifestyle changes as far as children. What else is missing that we need to fill it in before we start diving in?
Well, I think what's also not so quintessential is the female being the higher desire, which is what blessed me so much about your podcast in the beginning of our marriage. We've been married for 4.5 years, and we were very pure before. And so diving into our marriage, like I was never intimate with a man at that level, but my husband had been. So I had this narrative built, what you see in the movies, that
Okay.
the guy's always the higher desire, but it was flipped once we, got married. And it wasn't until I listened to your podcast that I finally felt seen.
Okay. And so because of what you came into this with the idea that, okay, he's had experiences before, so therefore he's going to be higher than I. And then when reality
hmm
plays out, all of that is like poof, that illusion's gone.
Yeah. And I do feel like our desires evened out towards the middle of our relationship or our marriage once we, got into a groove of routine. And then we recently had our first baby. We love him so much, and he's 8 months old, but that throws in a whole other factor to
Absolutely. That's impact on both of you.
everything. Yes. And so now we're in the season of, like I said, just complete stress. And I do feel like we're coming out of it, but it's hard for me to balance like what levels of intimacy do I feel like I need, like physically, but emotionally. And then like learning like where do I play a part in potentially limiting that intimacy. It's
Okay.
it's
Those
just a
are
lot.
those are fantastic questions I would have started with. So let's go with that on when you look at it, if you break it out in between emotional and sexual levels, have you come
Mhm.
to some understanding of what it is you're really looking for with an emotional level of intimacy?
I I do think I attach like the physical intimacy so much with the emotional. So like when I feel like we're not having sex as often in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're not connecting as much.
Okay.
But I can feel just as satisfied if we, have a date night and a really deep conversation. I think
Okay.
it's just typically I relate that like physical
There's
intimacy
more
to
of a
our
direct
connection.
line with the physical and the emotional
Yes.
for you. And now when you're talking about the physical, are you also talking about uh, physical as in only sexual or physical as in affectionate too?
Well, I would say, like, at the end of the day, if I were to analyze our day and I felt like he was being very physically affectionate, I probably would feel that level of like connection that I'm desiring. But I would say, like, just the capacity of our days that I don't, that sort of like physical affection until it's like sexy time.
Okay. And now, man, there's a lot of questions that come up from this, Ashley. So let's start with just one on, because what I'm hearing you describe on a bigger level is it means more to you when it's coming at you rather than you having to pursue it.
100%. And I think it's just this desire to be desired. I just want, and I recognize this is something I need to work in myself, getting my value from God and not, always my husband and my own self worth. But I do find that like my past, I was always valued for my physical beauty. And so my past relationships, that's what I felt like I had control in the relationship because I
Okay.
was this like prowess, this attractive thing that, you know, I could control. I felt like I could control a lot of things
Yeah.
just because of that.
Okay. Just because of your presence and
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. I got you.
And then I get married and the man I'm with, like love literally he treats me so well. Like I have no complaints. But it just he doesn't when it comes to that like sexual intimacy, I have that higher desire. So it's hard for me to battle like in my mind that just because he's maybe not coming on to me doesn't mean he doesn't isn't attracted to me.
Okay. I mean, is he a expressive person in general, or is he one that's a little more
He's more subdued,
okay?
but like when he does, it is deep and it is beautiful, but it is
Okay.
not his like strength to like words or necessarily like affection.
Okay. So then how do you put together the concepts of higher desire, lower desire when coupled also with responsive and spontaneous desires? Are you familiar with those terminologies too from us?
No.
Okay, that's fine. And these are from there's several different options of where this has come from. I've heard it from a couple different people. Higher desire, higher and lower is a great way to frame it, as you know
Mhm.
from what we do. But there's also
Mhm.
within it a level of most of the time higher desires are more spontaneous desires, where it means it takes
Mm,
less
mhm.
for them to be interested in whatever it is that they're desiring. And in this case, it's going to
Mhm.
be sexual touch or affectionate touch, and
Mhm.
physical touch, right? Lower
Mhm.
desires, many of the times, are also going to be in the category of responsive desire, meaning there has to be something that instigates them to respond to. And so, a lot of times, when you use the framework of higher, lower, you use the idea of the higher desire is responsible for a majority of the instigating because they're the ones that
Mhm.
wants it more, which
Mhm.
sometimes then means I have to give my lower desire spouse something that instigates a response. Because
Okay.
if you look at it through this lens, if you have times where, because your voicemail talked about he's not flirty with you, and then what you just mentioned
Mhm.
is you don't feel like he's treating you as this physical goddess of just
Mhm.
constant admiration of your beauty in ways that you
Mhm.
were used to earlier.
Right.
Does he respond though when you instigate something affectionate or instigate something flirty or instigate something sexual?
My mind immediately goes to like massages before always turn into like
Okay.
sex with him, and it that now that you say all of this, it makes sense. But like there have been times, and I've heard you talk about this on the podcast with Pam, like where you would like send a joking text or
Mm-hmm.
like jest, and it just wouldn't be received as well.
Oh
And
yeah.
I definitely feel that where I've tried to like maybe make like a sexual joke as like a hint, and it like was not received well as maybe like a massage would be received.
Well, okay. And again, this is looking at the various depths of the instigations too, because sometimes there's an element of we make a gesture or an overture, and there's really no practicality on it being acted upon right then and there.
Mm,
Right. Like I make comments to Pam via text or I'll call and I'll say something and it's playful and it's got a little sexual vibe to it. But we're not even with each other and it's the middle of the workday
mhm,
and it's in between things or I got a kid in the car or so it's like there's nothing that's going to
mhm,
be acted upon, but it's an energy still that to me as a higher desire I want to keep cultivating because I think then that can possibly bring up a threshold where responses are faster or easier when there is opportunities to act upon something. But walk me through the idea of the massages always work. Or do you have trouble bringing those up? Or does he bring them up? How do you guys transition from daily life to massage time?
I will say in the past, we like genuinely it was just like pure, hey, let's just give each other a massage. And then it naturally progressed. And so ever since that, it was kind of like a note to both of us, like, hey, if it's the end of the day and we like want to get to intimacy, but we need kind of like a ramp, and we'll just be like, hey, let's do massages. And
Yeah.
so there have been times where I clarify, like, is this like just a massage or, and he'll be like, no, no, no. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay.
Okay. Okay. But even that, because here's what I'm hearing you wrestle with, Ashley, is you want this coming at you because of it speaks more profoundly to you, but I feel like you're also selling yourself short a little bit in that when you were to actually seek it, it can speak to you as well.
Can you elaborate?
Sure, the idea of it here, because this is one of the things I think is the plight of a lot of higher desires is we feel like because of the way we are wired or the way we are
Mhm,
comparatively speaking to our spouse, and I'm going to keep this gender neutral in the sense of this is a male
mhm,
female thing for both, that there's this element of something coming just like this spontaneously at me means more for some reason than if they respond well to me. There is really a good depth of connection. There is a good unfolding of an interplay and an energy and a pleasure between us that we higher
Mhm.
desires we can get so caught up in the fact that what it took to get there diminishes what we actually got rather than does it. What if I break it
Mhm.
down a little bit and realize everything we do in life, somebody has to instigate it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the joke I use is we don't wind up having sex by accident in marriage, right? It's not like just, oh, how did we end up here? You know, it's like somebody had to bring it up. Somebody had to make the move. Somebody had to initiate it. And what you're being challenged with is it's not as easy as it once was for you because you're with somebody that isn't wired the way you thought would be. So now this
Mhm.
is uncovering a part of you that fantastic. You get a chance to refine and then combat your idea because I think even in your voicemail was I'm trying to wrestle with am I being selfish or am I overthinking this? And
Mhm.
I didn't hear anything and don't hear anything that would be selfish. It's just going to be more how are you more overt with what it is you actually want rather than hoping he'll pick up the cues and then take the reins from you.
No, but that's so hard as the girl because it's like, it's supposed to be like,
Well, maybe, but there's actually probably about
uh
30% of wives that are in your shoes. And
Mhm.
and this is just as it pertains to the element of sexual desire, because this also is
Yeah.
applicable to everything, every topic in life. One of you is the higher and lower, the other's the lower, always. We just put so much stigma on this one aspect of our marriage that yeah, it plays a big role, but it's still realizing there's this element of wait, what am I actually uncovering here? Because this was the other part of your question that you started with, which was how could I be getting in the way?
Yeah.
So, what are you coming up with that on how you could be getting in the way of the sex that you're wanting and the touch that you're wanting to have not actually happening at the frequency you would want it to?
Well, a recent scenario that happened is, we're under a lot of current financial stress just due to the hurricane devastating so much that we've owned. And I brought up to my husband, I was like, hey, would you be okay if I quit my very, very part-time job? Like it's like 10 hours a week. I believe later we tried to like connect physically and it just like didn't work or it just didn't go there. And I felt there was a disconnect. And the next day we talked and he said it was because of that question I had asked him.
Okay.
So that's what I mean about how am I getting in the way? Because I'm wondering if like he told me that really hurt him, that I am like it made him feel like I'm not in the know about what's going on financially in our family, and that came across as maybe more selfish. And so that's what I mean. It's like, are there things that I'm like
Okay.
potentially doing during the day that like could be limiting what I'm trying to receive, which is that affection?
Okay. So, and then in some ways, it's recognizing part of being human is our ability to learn how do I speak for what I'm looking for or make moves towards what I'm looking for? And then the secondary component that's almost equally important is how do I handle better whether or not I get it or it lands well? Because you brought up something that, okay, maybe it was a little bit self serving on this is what I
Mhm.
would prefer. This I think this could be better, and because we can rationalize and justify our arguments in all kinds of ways, and then when we bring it up to
Mhm.
somebody else that it will impact, I get new data,
Yeah.
and so just because it didn't go well on how it landed doesn't mean it wasn't a good move. Because then you
Mm.
can understand. Okay, wait. I mean, what'd you learn from his reaction, and where'd you guys land with this conversation thus far?
You asking me?
Yeah, are you still exploring the possibility of leaving your
It
part-time job?
ended well, that conversation that we had, it like lasted for like over an hour. And it was like we both felt so connected to each other
Mhm.
because we were revealing like I'm feeling overwhelmed just with being a new mom and handling all the stuff. and he's feeling overwhelmed, and he let me into our financial state as a family. So it
Perfect.
was very clear that we're just like not talking enough to each other about like what's actually going in on our hearts. And I do think that has a direct impact for like that affection and even that like physical intimacy at night.
Well, it actually creates the possibility of having deeper connection and deeper levels of affection because there's more known between you.
Um, that's a good way of framing it.
Well, I mean, because
Yeah.
that's what distinguishes married sex from casual sex, if you
Yeah.
will. It goes beyond just a functional act and it
Mm,
moves into who are the two people in the midst of this act together. And where does that go? How does it unfold? What's my presence? What's theirs? How is one of us leading, the other following? And then maybe we take turns. And so you start breaking up the entire arc of a sexual encounter or an affectionate encounter into a beginning, middle, and end, and there's
mm,
processes through all of it rather than it's one big giant thing, because it's not. There's a lot of nuance in it, and we can discover a lot about ourselves when I pay more attention to who am I and how I'm seeking this and how I'm handling what I'm getting back. Either it's good or it's bad.
yeah.
I still need to learn how to handle
Mhm.
it well, because some of us don't handle good
Mhm.
well either. He
Mhm.
could come at
Mhm.
you just as you idealized, and it might initially freak you out because it'd be like, wait a second, who's this guy?
Yeah. No, 100%. I could see that.
And so it's like, hey, and he's going to be in his mind, but I'm giving you exactly what you were saying you wanted. So it's this element of it's each of you understanding and exposing yourselves a little bit more to each other and yourself. And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you have a more intimate connection.
I mean, that sounds beautiful. It's just this like messy middle getting there.
Well, Ashley, let's not kid ourselves. There's messiness all the way through because
I know. Well, I think that is what I struggle with is this like comparison of like we're going to end up at this one point if we just figure out the right things to do. And I think I like trap myself and him into I put I don't know. I my mind I find has done a lot of these like creating these narratives that are just like not accurate and
right.
can like get in the way so easily.
Well, you're on the right track right off the bat from what I'm hearing, in that you guys are both trying to head down the route of more open dialogue and even mutual influence, where you
Mm,
get a chance to speak what you're thinking, he gets a chance to give his thoughts, and then you let those both start to unfold and look at the impacts, and then figure out, okay, what do we need to do? Well, in essence, Ashley, that's also a sexual encounter and how it unfolds. I bring it up
mm.
as the higher desire. Pam gives a response to it, positive or negative. We unpack a little bit more, maybe. We uncover a little bit more. We discover a little more. We engage in a little bit more, or we don't. And it's all still part of a language.
So are you suggesting that I gain confidence more and initiate more?
I look at it as an opportunity that you can. I'm not saying you
Okay.
should, because you've done enough of shoulding all over yourself with the
Yeah.
it should be this way, and why is it not with this way with him, because he should be that, and so it's just you got a lot of scripts that you've brought in that aren't lining up with your reality.
Right.
And so fighting a script that stays in the world of an illusion is a defeating process for both of you.
Mm.
But I'm saying you have an opportunity to explore more of the, hey, I'm interested in some affection tonight. Let's say
Uh-huh.
this is a thought you've got going on. So when he comes home or when you guys are together and you get a moment, and I'm just hypothetically posing out a visual that I see that could happen. I don't know what you guys' day-to-day situations like, but he could come
Mhm.
in and he's sitting down and you're like, man, I'd really love some affection. So you could come sit right beside him and snuggle up and put your arm around him or your head on his
Mm.
shoulder and just, hey, and then just talk and see, because that's actually an affectionate move. That's moving towards it.
Okay. Yeah, because it's so funny. That's like what I wish he would do to me,
Okay.
but I don't think that is just naturally what he would do.
It's probably not even on his radar, but he might respond to it. He also
Okay.
just as easily could say, what are you doing? This is really uncomfortable. Can you move over there on the other side of the couch, please? Which that's the risk you take.
So hot. I
I
want to be
get it.
rejected.
Well, but all it was rejected in that moment for that bid for affection. Does not mean it can't still culminate and turn towards something that is still affectionate.
Okay.
Because all of these are series of micro moves if you think about it. And so you have opportunities to speak and seek more of your desire or your intention and your hope, and then respond on however he responds.
Okay. And because you say you're a higher desire, how did you, in the beginning, when you like first discovered this, like, how did you encourage yourself maybe when you experienced rejection to like not take it so personally?
I had to keep it in context of, okay, that was just in this moment.
Okay.
She didn't pack up and move out because I made an
Yes.
overture. So
Okay.
she didn't belittle, degrade, you know, no, nothing out of control. It was a no, or a, what are you doing? Or not a good time, or something. And then I had to also
Okay.
couple it in with the self-talk of, wait, I want to be a person that expresses affection. I want to be somebody that
Okay.
seeks these things. And so good on me. I did. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
everything we learn comes with the risk and the likelihood of I'm going to get hurt. But I learn from it. It's just like your kid, your son, when he starts walking,
Mhm.
he's going to
Mhm.
fall. And if he gets scared of I might fall, then he has going to have a hard time learning to walk.
Mhm.
Fortunately, his brain doesn't have that kind of a level of abstract yet, not even close. So he just does it.
Mhm.
And if he gets hurt, okay, bumps, a little bump, cry a little bit, move on.
Yeah.
So it's realizing you have opportunities. So just take advantage of them and see. And, you know, not every single one of them you have to take advantage of, but take advantage of
Mhm.
some and see what you learn.
Okay. I have another question for you if we have
Yeah,
time.
go.
So the other night he like came on to me, but like literally in the middle of the night. And in the past, I loved that. I thought, like you said, that word spontaneous. I thought it was, hot. I thought it was cool, great, whatever. But because of the season that we're in, and I feel like I've been like almost like a little plant that has been wilted because I haven't, this is before our conversation where it's like I was expecting him to, come on to me more. I noticed that like I like subconsciously, because I'm like half asleep at that point, I subconsciously like come up with an excuse and
Right.
I say out loud, like, I'm too cold, I'm too cold. Like literally something so random and I don't remember it until the next day. And I reject it, which is like not like me, quote unquote. And I know it's in line with what we're talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, how to explain what I'm feeling in my heart, but then also explain that to him because 'cause I'm sure that is confusing for him.
Well, so it's not that you need to be able to figure out how, in my mind, explain it so that his confusion goes away. It is trying to get better at understanding what was going on with you in that as to why that might have unfolded for you the way it did. Because then it's a better understanding. I think of the exact same conversation you guys had when he brought you in on the finances and you brought him in on a desire of maybe I could quit my part-time work. By
Mm,
each of you instigating that, or at least being willing to go a little bit deeper with it, you had a more intimate conversation of knowing each other and your situations better. I mean, in some ways, you guys are 4.5 years into this thing, so you're still early. You're still figuring each other
yeah.
out. I mean, Pam and I are almost 32 into this, and I'm still figuring her out. So it's part of what comes with it. There's a lot more known, obviously, this far in for us, but there's still parts that's like
Mhm.
aren't refined yet in me that she doesn't know or understand yet completely. So I just bring that back
Mhm.
up in another conversation at some point and say, hey, I've been wrestling with this, and I kind of came to this understanding, and I think it might have been this, but I also totally appreciated or loved the fact that you instigated that when you wanted it. Cause it's like, to me, the goal of a great marriage and a great sex life in that marriage is there's room for both people to go about it the way they want to go about it and then handle however it goes well for each of them, that they
Mm,
recover well.
mm,
Cause sometimes our timings are just off.
100%.
Yep.
Okay, and then can I have another
Go. Yeah.
question?
Let's
So, um, I do think with, like, the whole higher desire thing, there's I don't know if there's a better word for this, but, like, I am more, like, creative, I think, in my mind when it comes to, like, sexual stuff, whether it be, like,
sure.
putting on something like lingerie or I don't know, just trying a new position even. And I don't feel that he is that way at all. And so I feel like there is a part of me that is like asleep. And I think it translates to my confidence, even like in the bedroom, because I'm not like experimenting new things or trying new things. And I don't know if I'm just making that up, but I want to be respectful of the fact of him. If like that's not what he's into, like I don't want to force that on to him. But like, what is that balance of like, hey, this is also a kind of a part of me that I feel like is asleep.
Okay.
Like, yeah,
Well, this
does that
is there's two parts that jump out to me with this, Ashley. Let's do the second part, which was the idea of introducing novelty within the act of you guys' sex life. Anytime you want to suggest or actually lead towards something that is new, it's always unilateral in the sense that somebody has to initiate the conversation or the move towards, hey, I would love to have sex outside today, or whatever it might be.
mm,
And
mhm,
because of that, there's always the chance that whoever does the unilateral move, I have to come to grips with the fact that it's likely my spouse has not been just waiting for me to bring that suggestion up. So
mhm.
it's a revealing of yourself,
Yeah,
right? Which is a vulnerable move, but when you couple that with a little more confidence and self-development or solidness, you're
mhm,
capable of that. And this is also then dovetails perfectly into this first part of the question, which was the idea of you've always been one that would usually don the lingerie or have the visual appeal
mhm,
available more.
yeah.
Okay. So that then begs the question of, are you doing that solely for him, or is there also parts of you that likes how you feel when you're wearing fun, sexy, erotic, not lingerie, whatever it might be?
Yes, well, now that you say it, I think it just sounds so selfish to say, but I think I like doing it because it makes me feel confident.
Then do it. Well, again, but that's the
Uh,
risk is you put on something that makes you feel really appealing, and he
okay.
may not see it at all like you're trying to hope he will. But it's the
Um,
same, that is a metaphor exactly of the entirety of what's going on with you right now in your marriage.
well, dang it. Hard to be
Well,
vulnerable.
okay, it is, but then again, the hope would be if you feel better wearing a sexy pair of bra and panties or lingerie or whatever it might be someday, well, then just wear it and hold your head up high and feel confident about yourself. And don't try to make it a scene to where I hope he notices. I mean, because obviously your radar is finely tuned on is he catching this or not?
Yep,
Because
yep.
that's also, it sounds like in some ways, you've had a history of that where people will catch it and you're aware. Okay. Nothing necessarily wrong with that unless you start to until you start to recognize how much you have attached to is it recognized or not.
Oh, 100%. I mean, ugh, like, that's how I survived through life is based off of the approval and the acceptance of others, and
Okay.
a lot of it attached to my looks because maybe I wasn't the smartest in the world or came from money.
Right.
It's like all these things, like
Right.
that's what I had.
Right. And so now you have to realize this is an opportunity to expand that. And a woman that can dress the way she wants to for herself primarily
Yeah,
is a way to do that possibly because you're doing it because you like it.
yeah. That's so interesting because this whole time, like for example, Valentine's Day, he knew I got a gift from a friend that's like this sexy lingerie, whatever.
Mhm.
I've been waiting for him to ask me to put it on, and he hasn't. I'm like offended by that. And I'm like, why am I offended? Why don't I just put it on?
Yeah, just put it on, and then maybe there's a little playful glance. Maybe there's a little playful comment of "If only you knew what I had on." And then, but the point is, you're the one kind of moving
Hmm.
out into your world that way because
Okay.
that's a better pressure than you doing something and then still staying kind of quote unquote reserved and hope he will draw it out of you because what's being shown is he probably won't because he's just not as wired like that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Feel like revelation.
Well, I mean, to me, this is about what is it that helps you move into your world the way you want to move into your world better. And then you see what kind of responses you get, and you respond in kind as you need to for you. You're already
Do
well
you
on your
and
way.
thank you. This is really revealing, and I am already, my wheels are turning on ways that I
Good.
can build confidence in myself just to step out there.
Well, that's, to me, that's the hope of all of our shows, is that people figure out how to build confidence in ourselves, to be more ourselves, because then not only is it better for me, the spouse I'm with gets a gift. My kids get that
Yeah.
gift. My friends get that gift too. Ashley, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.